This episode is sponsored by Ren. It's 1950. A 14-year-old boy is out for a hike with his friend when suddenly he feels a jarring pain in his back. The pain is coming from something he never would have expected, the shape of his backpack. You see, his traditional backpack ignored one crucial thing: weight distribution. So with that problem in mind, the teenager goes to work and finds the solution inside his family's basement. With sewing skills he had learned from his mother at just 10 years old, the Swedish boy uses wood to craft his first prototype. With pride, he leaves his signature embroidered on his creation, a small Arctic fox known in Swedish as fjällräven. Little does he know, that symbol will later have a deeper meaning. One that people would be willing to pay a premium for. That teen's name is Åke Norden. He grew up in the north of Sweden and for as long as he could remember, spent the majority of his time outside in nature. In doing so, he liked to be readily equipped and carried more on his shoulders than any teenager would or should at his age. That is until he felt that jarring pain in his back. So, in the basement that evening, he set out to create the key to solving this. He began to research and found out that weight needed to be distributed across his back more evenly, positioned higher up and closer to the spine. With a concept in mind, he collected a few wood pieces, lightweight cotton fabric, leather straps, and turned to his mother's sewing machine to assemble his ideal backpack. And that was it. He lifted his creation up to the light and realized that the frame he just built would do more than just distribute the weight evenly across his back. It was also huge. Big enough to fit his tent, enough food for two, and room to spare for his other essentials. Little did he know, he had placed himself on a path that would lead to unimaginable success. It was on a trip to the mountains surrounded by reindeer that he would begin to see this success unfold. Before we continue how Åke's backpack made from natural materials had a positive impact on the environment, we'd like to thank our sponsor Ren. If you've listened to the news lately, you may have heard about some of the impacts climate change is having on our world. Specifically, how it has been threatening the future of coffee crops. Ren is a website that makes it easy to keep track of your carbon footprint by answering just a few questions about your lifestyle. Ren even lets you offset it by funding projects to protect the rainforest and plant more trees. Even if you give up driving in favor of walking, cycling, carpooling, and taking public transit to offset your impact, no matter how careful we are, everyone's lifestyle releases some amount of CO2, contributing to our world's climate change. Ren will help you discover more about your carbon footprint, and while no one can reduce their footprint to zero, you can provide a monthly contribution to offset your footprint and receive updates on the projects you support. Given the state of the world, you might want to support the partner projects to give refugees clean cooking fuel or to support indigenous Amazonian groups protecting the rainforest that they call home. Changing the world for a better tomorrow will take a lot of work, but Ren can help us all learn more about our next steps today. Offset your carbon footprint on Ren. The first 100 people to sign up through our link in the description will have an extra 10 trees planted in their name. His new backpack was a godsend, but not just for him. Åke's invention caught the eye of the Sami people indigenous to the area. They were traditional reindeer herders and would spend long periods of time living in the extreme conditions of the famously rugged mountain terrain. They were so intrigued by the enormous backpack Åke was wearing that they made a request to this stranger. They asked him to create one for them as well. After his successful dealings with the Sami people, Åke thought his hobby of creating backpacks was over. He went to the same school his father had attended, followed by 15 months of extremely demanding military service. Without these 15 months, he would never have built the multi-billion-dollar empire that awaited him. He quickly noticed a problem within the military that transported him back to his 14-year-old self on the mountains with his nagging back pain. He saw that even the equipment that was being used by the highest, most leading military personnel in the country were not reaching their full potential. And so, his innovative spirit began bursting. What he had accomplished in his basement as a teen wasn't just a hobby. The world needed his inventions a lot more than he thought. He had to do something. So he went back to the basement, dusted off his worn prototype, and got back to work. This time, he was determined to create something even better than the last. It was going to be the best backpack on the market, the ultimate backpack. And in 1960, 10 years after creating the first prototype in that same basement, Fjällräven was officially born with one clear mission: to enable and inspire more people to spend time in nature. Åke understood that for people to appreciate and care for nature, they had to be able to get out and experience it. They would also refuse to chase short-term goals, follow trends, or compromise on quality. And every piece would need to be as resilient as the small Arctic animal it was named after. Åke replaced the original wood frame that served him so well for a new, lightweight aluminum frame that would prove to be even more successful. This newly framed backpack would garner attention from a uniquely placed advertisement in the May 1960 number 4 issue of the Swedish Tourist Association's newspaper. The ad for the small, newly founded company read, "Lightweight carry frame, tested during 3 years of winter and summer mountain treks." If you know a Sami or a mountain farmer, ask him how you should carry a really heavy backpack. He will tell you about the unsurpassable carrying properties of the carry frame. Printed with stamp-sized photos of Åke wearing the large backpack, the ad sat comfortably next to an ad for hemorrhoid cream. So began rolling the yet-to-be unstoppable brand of Fjällräven, known the world over for its sustainable practices and real-life applications. The year is now 1966, and out in the middle of nowhere with dangerously strong gusting winds, one thing becomes glaringly obvious. Fjällräven had more work to do. You see, an opportunity arose for Fjällräven to supply a team of alpinists and researchers with equipment for a Scandinavian Greenland expedition. They set off from Kalusuk, Greenland with 7 different sized tents as well as backpacks for the whole team. And while their Fjällräven gear was perfect, they realized their clothes weren't cutting it against the very real, harsh natural elements of the area. Returning from their trek, they informed Åke of this. He grabbed the opportunity to solve this next challenge facing outdoor enthusiasts and took on jackets. That's when the Greenland jacket came to life. It was practical, lightweight, water-resistant, and created using a brand new type of fabric that Åke designed himself, the G1000. But Åke's competitors had something Fjällräven did not, the label of waterproof. He could not and would not do what the competition did to claim that label. In order to be waterproof, they would justify the use of harsh, cancer-causing, won't decompose in thousands of years chemicals such as Gore-Tex with PFCs, declaring that there was no other alternative. But is that true? Is it really necessary? Well, unless you're dunking your whole body in a lake or standing in the pouring rain for hours, you don't need waterproof clothing. Sticking to their core values was too important for Fjällräven, and Åke decided that water-resistant would suffice. So yet again, Fjällräven would prove that ingenuity was all it took to stick to their mission, while simultaneously creating the best product they could. Åke was admiring this new fabric when a memory sparked within him. He was a child, back on the top of a ski hill, sitting with his best friends. They were reapplying wax to the bottoms of their skis. But they didn't just rub their skis with wax. They applied it to the backside of their pants as well to make them even more resistant to the wet snow. That's when he was reminded of the effectiveness of wax. Inspired, Åke got to work developing a bar of wax that people could carry with them to reinforce water resistance. Along came Greenland wax. It was made with a secret mixture of beeswax and paraffin, allowing for fabric to become more durable and resistant to water and wind. The 2 Greenland expedition-inspired products were built around the idea that gave the brand that deeper meaning behind every small Arctic fox. Creating something practical and sustainable without compromising the environment and health of their customers. It was now the 1970s and Fjällräven was outgrowing its home in the Norden family cellar. So, the company made the move to its own factory, allowing for much larger scale production of their expanding product line. This expansion would come in handy much earlier than Ake had anticipated. In 1978, a startling study showed that close to 80% of the Swedish population suffered from back pain, often beginning in childhood. Children were suffering, and the most likely cause was something Ake was all too familiar with: badly designed bags. Children at the time were known to mostly wear bags hanging off one shoulder. With Ake's experience, he got to work designing a functional, comfortable, square backpack specifically for these young students. He created the backpack around two A4 ring binders and included a foam insert that would pad the back of the wearer. The bag had two shoulder straps, a pocket to organize papers, a zippered front pocket, and two short handles at the top of the bag that could be pulled together to hold a jacket. This new pack would be known as the Kanken and was created using a natural, water-repellent vinyl fabric whose fibers swell when wet, making any water pool on the surface of the bag instead of seeping through. With the help of the Swedish Guide and Scout Association, Fjällräven released it to the public just in time for students to return to school that same year. They manufactured 5,000 backpacks for the launch of the product with an aim of selling 200 in the first year. Unfortunately, only one retailer agreed to take a mere 75 of them. Things weren't looking too good for the success of Fjällräven's newest design. But with the help of Ake's brother-in-law, who worked as a reporter, the bleak outlook for the success of the Kanken was about to change drastically. He circulated an advertisement for the Kanken through 100 different news outlets. The ad claimed to have solved back pain with children with a new backpack design. Parents took note. Sales doubled his projection in the first year, and 1 year later leaped to a staggering 30,000 Kankens being sold. Nearly 50 years later, that number has continued to rise with approximately 200,000 Kankens sold annually, all while following almost the exact same design as the original. The Kanken is now sold worldwide and is even the most popular selling item in the catalog of Fjällräven's parent company, Phoenix Outdoor. Fjällräven began as and continues to be a brand that focuses on functionality, sustainability, and durability, creating a longevity in its products that outlast the test of both time and nature. Ake continued to ensure an adherence to Fjällräven's mission. He would continue to innovate new ways to remain true to himself and everything the brand stood for. Fjällräven even went so far as to create something no other outdoor company had before: the Fjällräven Classic, an expedition where trekkers hike an 80-mile route, carrying with them all they'll need for their journey. Occurring in the summer among the glacier-covered peaks and sprawling tundra above the Arctic Circle, boasting reindeer and waterfall sightings, and selling out its tickets within seconds. Fjällräven manages checkpoints along the route, and hikers are greeted by a cheering crowd, a warm meal, live music, and the opportunity to indulge in a massage or even a cozy bed at the finish line. The Fjällräven Classic began 19 years ago in Sweden and now spans across the world with differently paced expeditions in the US, UK, Denmark, Germany, Korea, and Hong Kong. Sticking with its roots and coming up with creative ways to incorporate its mission and engage with consumers has allowed Fjällräven to continue on its path of success. Sadly, Fjällräven's founder and visionary, Ake Norden, was diagnosed with a terminal illness in the summer of 2013 and, at the age of 77, passed away on December 27th that same year. Since his death, Ake's eldest son, Martin, has remained a key player in the business his father built over 70 years ago in the basement with his mother's sewing machine. Martin acts as a board member for Fjällräven and is the CEO of the brand's parent company, Phoenix Outdoor. Today, the parent company is worth $12 billion, and as of 2021, Fjällräven has stores in 73 countries and counting. It all stemmed from a teenager who saw a problem that begged to be solved and who took it upon himself to create the solution. For more stories about the world's biggest brands, subscribe to Hook and ring the bell so you never miss an episode.